Coco Gauff shocked the whole world when she won the 2023 US Open, but what's even more interesting is what some of the all-time greats think of her. The good, the bad, and the ugly. What do tennis legends really think of Coco Gauff? Even before Coco won the US Open, Novak could already see the stars aligning for her. He also acknowledged Coco's physical fitness and spoke highly of her ball striking ability and the fact that she was already developing into a complete player and could have a great shot at winning the US Open. True to his words, it happened. But we've got to address what John McEnroe said because he doesn't totally agree with Coco Gauff on one thing. You see, after Gauff won the US Open, she took a few minutes to hit back at those who doubted her, and Johnny Mac was like, who are those guys?
Honestly, thank you to the people who didn't believe in me. Those who thought we were putting water in my fire, you're really adding gas to it.
According to the former world #1 and 7-time major winner, he really finds it hard to believe that there were actually people who thought that Coco wasn't going to win a bunch of majors. In his words, I think her progress has been steady. It has been really positive, and she was in the final of the French Open. Okay, so there were a couple of stumbling blocks along the way. McEnroe then told fellow Eurosports analyst Mats Wilander that he was questioning whether people actually said it, or if it was just a couple of people in a basement somewhere. Anyone who knows anything about tennis has seen the progress she has made, and she's 19 years old for goodness sake. McEnroe then addressed the fact that she has a big loop on her forehand, but mentioned that Medvedev also has it and is also still successful. According to McEnroe, there are players who adapt and do what they have to do to get the job done, and that's what Coco has done so far. I totally agree with John McEnroe on that one, but guess who believed in Coco way earlier than many other people? After both Williams sisters missed the 2021 US Open, along with a couple of other high-profile players, Venus Williams was asked who she was rooting for, and right off the bat, she went with Coco for the title. Here's what Venus said.
Coco Gauff, she's awesome, so maybe she'll have a breakthrough tournament.
It took 2 years for Venus's predictions to manifest, but hey, Venus lost to Coco the 2 times they faced, but Coco draws a lot of inspiration from the Williams sisters, and it's clear that the respect is mutual. Venus and Serena have been there cheering Coco every step of the way, and it's almost like they want to see her carry on the torch for American women's tennis, which can only be a good thing for the sport in general. And then we have Rafael Nadal. You see, when you've been on tour as long as Rafa, you come to know a talent when you see one. During a post-match conference at Wimbledon last year, Rafa said that he loved the way Gauff talks at press conferences, that she was mature, and that she could become a multi-slam winner. Rafa thinks that she's a fighter like him, and with a little empowerment, her stock could rise exponentially. Here's what he said.
I think she's a fighter. I like the way that she plays. She fights for every ball.
As you would expect, Coco was super excited to hear those words, and she quickly returned the kindness, stating that Rafa was her favorite person in the tennis world, and that he's an impressive competitor and a great person. We all know that Naomi and Coco have shared some special moments together, and we even saw Naomi encourage Coco to stay out there and appreciate the crowd. It almost seems like Naomi and Coco have this big sister, little sister relationship. In a recent sit-down interview with ESPN, 4-time major winner and former world #1 Naomi Osaka said that she wanted her newborn daughter to one day look up to Coco Gauff, discussing her admiration for Gauff. Naomi plans to return to the WTA Tour in 2024 and participate in more tournaments than she has done in the past. Who do we have next? Former Australian tennis player and tennis coach Darren Cahill shared his thoughts on Coco Gauff in a recent episode of Jimmy Connors' podcast, Advantage Connors. He talked about the fact that everyone he has spoken to has had a positive opinion about Gauff, but he didn't just end there. Darren Cahill compared her to a sponge, emphasizing just how well she can soak up information about her game and how being headstrong is good for her. Here's a snippet of what he said.
She's a delight to speak to. She's like a sponge. She's taking in information about her game, but she's also a little bit headstrong, which you need, and all the champions have that.
But while everyone is praising Coco, it's a little more complicated with Chris Evert. First, let me get this out of the way. Chrissy is without a doubt a fan of Coco. She has called her an extraordinary human being following her US Open triumph, but it hasn't always been smooth sailing. And for the few who don't know Evert, she's a former world #1 and won 18 major singles titles, making her one of the very best in tennis history. Evert even won the US Open 6 times and has been an analyst at ESPN. Back in 2019, Evert already admitted that there was Grand Slam potential in Coco, but remained very cautious because she knew Coco was young and a lot of things could go wrong. But 3 years down the line, guess what happens? Evert felt the heat and faced heavy criticism after a journalist remarked regarding her commentary during the quarterfinal match between Coco Gauff and Caroline Garcia at the 2022 US Open. The journalist pointed out that Evert seemed unenthusiastic whenever Gauff won a point or played a great shot, while she was quick to criticize Coco for making errors during the match. Earlier this year, Chris Evert pointed out Gauff's weakness, saying, "I just think her forehand with the extreme Western grip has delayed her first major. It's held her back a little bit. She's been on the tour for 4 years, and she has the experience, the confidence, and she can hold her nerve. She has an excellent serve when it's on and a world-class backhand. Now the players are hitting to her forehand as they recognize it's the weaker side. Until she gets that ironed out or has a really great day on her forehand, I see that as something that should be a discussion with her team. I don't want to say it's a problem, but what are they going to do about that?" Honestly, I don't think Evert has any problem with Coco, but what do you guys think? Meanwhile, Mats Wilander shares a similar view. We could point out 1 or 2 matches this season where Coco Gauff wasn't at her best. A good example is her 4th-round match at the 2023 French Open against Anna Carolina. Gauff won the match 7-5, 6-2, but Mats Wilander pointed out the need to improve her serve in order to be a consistent contender for Grand Slam titles. Gauff made 7 double faults in that match, and Wilander had this to say: "She's an unbelievable problem solver. Her serve, she needs to keep the left up arm longer. I cannot believe with all her coaching, she keeps making that miss of throwing the ball too far in front. Keep your left arm up longer and throw it higher. She's so athletic. Throw it to the left. Is it mental? Can she do it in practice and then gets afraid of it?" Interestingly, Wilander had described Coco as the complete package, even comparing her to Novak Djokovic at the 2022 US Open. At the same time, it seems like these legends of the sport change their mind on players based on recent performances, so we have to factor in the bias there. Now I know 2 coaches who totally nailed their predictions on Coco Gauff. Paul Annacone is a former American player-turned-coach who has always believed Coco Gauff had what it took to clinch the 2023 US Open title. Annacone has coached the likes of Roger Federer and Pete Sampras in the past, and he stated that the hardest thing a young player had to deal with was the ups and downs in their careers. In his words, "I think one of the hardest things for a superstar that's that young is to manage the kind of plateauing, and as great as she is, she's plateaued a little bit, and so many people expected so much so quickly from her. I never thought she was playing badly. I never thought she flattened out. I thought it was part of the progression." Paul then said that Coco would win her maiden Grand Slam if she didn't allow the pressure to get the better of her. According to Paul, it has always been a matter of when, not if, for Coco to get the best results at the highest level, and boy was he right. Serena Williams' former coach Patrick Mouratoglou met Coco when she was 10 and could tell right away that Coco had a certain aura and always brought something extra on the court. After reaching her 100th career win on the WTA Tour earlier this year, Mouratoglou had this to say:
Coco has this quality to bring this extra something to every match. This excitement is so rare when you watch so much tennis. She's a super competitor. She is always totally engaged in everything she does. She puts her heart on the court, and she has the ability to make us live this journey with her.
Now here's where things get interesting. An all-time great that has been in Coco's shoes before, and he thinks Gauff is the next big thing alongside Iga Swiatek and Aryna Sabalenka. Maybe we should throw Alina Rybakina in the mix because she hasn't been at her best for some time. What do you think is going on with her, and would you like to see us make a video about her and her struggles? Back to Coco, here's what Boris Becker thinks. Following impressive title-winning streaks in Washington and Cincy, Becker already backed Coco Gauff to win the US Open, but he had this to say: "It's always difficult when you're 15 years old and already being touted as the next superstar of the tennis scene by us experts. That doesn't make life any easier for a 15-year-old. That means the pressure increases, the expectations rise, and you also lose a bit of patience. Now I finally have to win something big." Becker then went on to say that Gauff has a great personality and that Gauff is the superstar that the women's scene needs. And former world number 1 Martina Navratilova is also thinking along these lines. In her Sky Sports commentary, Navratilova revealed that she has some huge expectations from Coco, and that she has even gone as far as predicting that Gauff will hit double figures for Grand Slams in the future. That's quite a big take, but honestly, she 100% has the game, and we'll see where things go from here. Navratilova won 18 Grand Slam singles titles, and more than twice that number in doubles and mixed doubles, and she's certainly qualified to share her opinions. According to her, provided that Gauff remains healthy, she doesn't see any reason why she can't win at least 10 Grand Slams over the course of her career. In Navratilova's words, "I think she was just groomed for this from so far back, but you still have to be the person that can handle it, and she handles it with grace, humility. She's just getting started, that's the beauty of it." There were so many expectations put on her when she first came on tour. She burst through at Wimbledon, and people thought she'd be top 5 in a minute. I don't know who those people were who were doubting her, because it certainly wasn't me. She's not stopping, so watch out, world. If she doesn't go into double digits for majors, I would be surprised. Navratilova then told Sky Sports that Gauff is going to be a big source of inspiration and a role model for every kid out there with a dream. I find Andy Roddick's takes quite interesting and funny, so it was also interesting to see him talk about Coco's maturity, how she handled the climate protest that lasted almost an hour in the US Open semifinal. Here's a snippet.
But obviously she handled it as well as you could, and she's just been amazing.
Andy Roddick is still the last American male to win the US Open, and it's been 20 years already. With Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Medvedev dominating right now, do you think any American man has a shot at a US Open crown in the next 3 to 5 years? Big ups to 4-time major winner and former world #1 Jim Courier, who also believed in Coco before she got the monkey off her back. At the French Open earlier this year, Courier backed Gauff to make a deep run even when many people had written her off. In his words, "I feel Coco deserves to be in that discussion, given her run at the French Open last year. Obviously, she's having some difficulties in that singles court right now. Hopefully, she can solve it in Paris." Obviously, she didn't solve it completely in Paris, but look where we're at now. And to the Queen herself. Following her US Open win, the GOAT took to social media to congratulate the new GOAT. Okay, wait, I need to stop getting ahead of myself here. Serena acknowledged Gauff in her story and simply called her amazing in this post. Gauff often talks about how the Williams sisters have influenced her career and how they allowed her to believe in her dream growing up, all the things they had to go through, and how they made it easier for someone like her. Rafa's uncle, Tony, was excited to see Gauff win her maiden major title at Flushing Meadows. He praised Gauff for her hard work and maturity. Here's what Uncle Tony said. "I'm glad that with tenacity, work, and great education, last Saturday she managed to prove them wrong. I don't know her personally, but seeing her celebration full of emotion, she seems to me a very sensible athlete." But we aren't done just yet, because we have on our hands a very spicy take from a former world #1. Justine Henin remains one of the greatest in women's tennis history. She won 7 majors, spent 117 weeks at the top of the rankings, and bagged 43 titles in her career. Henin possessed one of the best one-handed backhands ever seen on the WTA Tour. While commentating for Eurosport France during last year's US Open, she had this to say about Coco. "Coco has more weapons in her game," Henin said. "She can control a lot of what she is doing." According to Henin, Gauff is mature on important points and has the experience to deal with trouble if she faces a tough opponent, and she also handles pressure dealing with questions throughout tournaments. All of the pressure is on her, and I was really impressed with the way she's moving. We know her qualities. She still has a bit of work to do, but I was really impressed in the way she was dealing on the important points, especially on serve. She was serving at the right place, and she's been so strong mentally. So I decided to save the best for last, the one and only Roger Federer. He recently made an appearance at the 2023 Laver Cup, where he interacted with the crowd and closely observed training sessions in Vancouver. In a recent interview with ATP, Federer shed light on the current tennis landscape, emphasizing the remarkable achievements witnessed in the sport's recent history, while expressing a positive outlook for the future of tennis, and he made a reference to Coco Gauff. A few weeks back, he had congratulated Gauff for her US Open title win in this post, talking about how Gauff's hard work and dedication has paid off big time. This time, he relives the moment and says that he enjoys following everything that's happening and that he is happy to see the sport moving on without him. But what do you think of Coco Gauff moving forward? Now that she's won a slam, she'll definitely have a target on her back, and other players are going to look to step it up against her. At the same time, when do you also see her having a real shot at the world #1 ranking? It's pretty clear that almost every tennis legend thinks super highly of Coco Gauff, which is really impressive at this point in her career. It shows you just how good she really is. Gauff's story and her rise to the top are one of the best things that have happened in tennis in recent years. But if you're wondering just how she got there, from 15-year-old tennis prodigy to Grand Slam winner, you'll definitely want to check out our recent video.